My name is Derek Henry, and I have the pleasure of serving as the mayor of Daytona Beach. I want to thank everyone assembled at the table and everyone who is here with us in the audience for joining us. This, I believe, is a very important assemblage of personalities who have a lot more information and knowledge about law enforcement. And so I just want to frame part of the purpose that we're here is to help create a tool of dialogue and have the support of those who are assembled at this table to help us in the First Step Shelter initiative. And so with that said, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague on the City Commission, an attorney, and the person who's a lot more knowledgeable about law than myself, Attorney Aaron.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank everyone for coming here today. This was a group that we were able to get together in a week's notice, so certainly we didn't need to be exclusive of anyone. There are a lot of people who would love to be here, who we would have loved to have, and a lot of people adjusted their schedule to be able to be here tonight. But what we thought we would do was put together a group of law enforcement experts and attorneys and judges to address some of the issues with chronic adult homelessness through the lens of the legal system. Instead of addressing it as a social justice issue, we thought we would address it as a criminal justice issue. And what we found is, I think when you look at it as a criminal justice issue, you're able to come to consensus on a lot of things, and you're able to zero in very quickly on some real costs. And so the result is that you see everyone from the state attorney to the public defender and defense attorneys, law enforcement judges, who are able to be in agreement on something. And that's a pretty rare thing when you have a group of personalities and interests as diverse as this group could be, who are able to agree on some tenets, which is, I think, what we have here today. Our idea is that the premise of a centrally located come-as-you-are shelter is a criminal justice issue. And the reason that we look at it that way is several. First, our court systems are clogged with people who are being prosecuted for crimes that are overwhelmingly committed by people who are homeless. So it's everything from trespassing to open containers of alcohol, things like that. And when you go through and you look at the numbers, you'll see that we spend a tremendous amount of money jailing and prosecuting these people, not just in actual out-of-pocket expenses, but also the time that law enforcement is spent doing that. They're not protecting the citizens from other crimes. So if you have to take the time to put 2 officers on the scene to deal with someone with an open container, that's 2 less officers patrolling. That ends up to be thousands and thousands of dollars. And what we found when we looked at it is millions of dollars were being spent. So right there alone, we were able to identify about 50 people who were arrested more than 20 times over 3 years at a cost of several $1 million to the county. So right there is your money for a shelter to fund it and operate it. The other issue is one of federal civil rights. And we look at civil rights not just from the perspective of people who would be prosecuted, but also the civil rights of everyone in the community. Business owners, homeowners, residents, they all have rights. And without the correct set of laws and the correct procedures, we can't protect everyone's rights. And that includes people who are accused of crimes. So there is federal case law that talks about what a city has to have before it can enforce its rules and laws and ordinances that affect predominantly homeless people. And we've provided in our draft some quotes from the main cases. And the main case is a case called Pottinger. It's a decision from a federal appellate court, which would be binding on us. And it essentially says that until you have a come-as-you-are central shelter, you cannot successfully arrest and prosecute people for this wide category of petty offenses that are commonly associated with, with being homeless. So that means 2 things. That means that the police officers run the risk of making an illegal arrest. It would not be enforceable in a court of law. The second is that the city or the municipality or the county runs a risk of being subject to a civil rights lawsuit. And that's a real cost. It costs money to settle. It costs money to insure. As we walk around the corner, there's a room called risk management for a reason. We don't generally want to wait until the crash occurs to put in the stop sign. We don't want to wait until we're sued to think about liability. So those were some of the reasons that we analyzed it as a criminal justice issue. And when you looked at it that way, I think the conclusions we reached were pretty clear. Then the other thing we looked at is what what tools and solutions can law enforcement and lawyers offer? Well, lawyers can offer rules, ordinances, draft of things that we need to get the system going, and law enforcement can offer training, ways of dealing with the situation, ways of identifying who benefits, who should be put in a shelter, who shouldn't be put in a shelter, and also the law enforcement is at the end up to the prosecution. So the prosecution, working with the judges and the defense attorneys, can put together a system to divert people from being cycled through the jail in kind of a seemingly endless loop to say, listen, we're going to divert you to a non-jail setting where you can receive the services and things that you need. And if you do that, then we can talk about reducing your charges, dismissing your charges, doing all these other things. And so that will clear up the court system for the state attorney to prosecute people who really deserve to be prosecuted for serious crimes. It will free up the defense attorneys to focus on other offenses. It'll free up the resource of the public defender.
We want to be in compliance with the law at all times. When you're operating as a city, you're the leaders. It's important that you set the example. And there's different kinds of laws. There's ordinances that elected officials pass. There's statutes that come from our legislature. And then there's case law, which Pottinger is. And case law is just as valid a law as any of the other types. It needs to be complied with.
This is a county-wide problem. If you don't think you've got homeless, then you're dealing with the invisible homeless. You've got the visible and you've got the invisible. I guarantee you, and most of the wooded areas throughout this county are encampments of homeless folk. And we need to join forces together, just like we're doing right now, and do something either to help these people, or if they don't want the help, incarcerate the people, but at least give us the tools to provide alternate sources rather than trying to think of reasons to put them in jail because our folks can't use the parks, they can't use the libraries, or whatever because of the problem that we have. And we've been toying around with this for many years. There's a homeless guy in South Daytona I know. He's been homeless for 10 years. So I mean, please, I'm just imploring you guys, let's get the ball rolling and really do something this time.
As the sheriff, I can tell you, I have been out in the land, I have been in DeBarry, and there are folks living throughout the entire county in the woods. So to bury your head in the sand and say this doesn't exist, doesn't work. Second thing is Commissioner White and Mr. Chisholm and I took a trip to Pinellas County to see how that model, that law enforcement model worked. And the only knock on it was after the first couple of years, funding dried up from all the other cities and they shifted the entire burden onto the sheriff. It was a great concept. They were able to enforce the ordinances. It's better than anything that we have in place now. From a historical perspective, I've been the chief here 10 years, and we have been to more meetings and passed more documents and not done anything to address the problem. And I'm hoping that this time we're really going to do that. With that Pinellas County model, and Mr. Chisholm was there, and again, Commissioner White was there, there are a lot of good takeaways from that.
Just so all of you folks understand how that system worked in Pinellas, I talked to the sheriff of Pinellas County today about the program and the state attorney over there. What happens is when an individual is approached by law enforcement and they're given the option if they're violating an ordinance, it could be panhandling, it could be disorderly conduct, disorderly intoxication, whatever it is, it's a minor offense, a nonviolent offense, they can be given the option of you go to the shelter or you go to jail. So they're either going to go one place or the other. And I believe that you've identified property by the jail so that it's right there so that officers wouldn't have to go like from one end of the county to the other. And if something happened while they're going there or whatever, they've got the jail option still available to them. But so it wouldn't be in your backyard, which let's face it, a lot of folks don't want this kind of a facility next door to them. So we'd alleviate that problem by the location. Additionally, this program it has to take them as they are. I mean, in other words, if they are intoxicated, as long as they're not violent, they can't be refused. And it's different from some other shelters in that they actually stay there they get counseling, there's medical services provided, there's mental health counseling, there's job placement counseling for these folks. Now, you know, they either take advantage of it or they don't. But the one key I want everybody to understand is that they're not just, they're not getting a walk. They get a choice. But, you know, that if they opt to go to jail, they go to jail. And then they go through the system and they go through the process. But y'all have seen what happens with that for a long time now. Folks go to jail, they get out, they don't get any services or any help, and guess what? They're either back in your neighborhood or on your business steps or running your customers off. I mean, so this is an effort to try and address some of that. And at the same time, I'll tell you, everybody at this table is committed to public safety. Nobody wants this to be, we want this to be enhance the safety of your neighborhoods, your business communities, so that folks are coming and they're not getting run off by some of the byproducts of the problems with homeless folks. And at the same time, we may only reach 10 or 20 or 30% of them ultimately, but that's better than what's happening now. So just so you understand the mechanics of it, that's how it would work. Now, of course, Judge Schuman's talked about diversion. There might be homeless folks who say no to begin with, and then they get in jail and maybe they'll want to go to the shelter. Maybe they'll hear about it. The state attorney's office, you know, we're open to considering, you know, ways to help these folks get on their feet if they want to. But we're also committed, and I want to be clear about this, to prosecuting folks that are a danger to you and your communities, or who are what we call these habitual misdemeanor offenders who just reject help and continue to break the law. So we're trying to strike a balance between helping the homeless folks, creating an alternative, and at the same time making sure that safety of your communities is maintained and hopefully enhanced.
America's Rubik's Cube problem is homeless. You're right, we're not going to solve this, we're not going to see it. However, we're not doing anything. So we've got to get started, as you said, and just on the ground floor. And let's get it up and let's get the ball rolling.
So with that in mind, what we'd like to do is we've circulated a kind of a draft among everybody. What we'd like to do is kind of finalize that this evening and tomorrow, and then present Mayor Henry with our final kind of report that will have some, you know, our kind of a summary of what we talked about here, the case law, the decisions that you need. It'll have some of the facts and statistics in the appendix. So you'll have, and it's available to anyone who wants it, you'll have a copy of this report, and you'll have the support of everyone here in going forward to the county or the municipalities and explaining how this can be a benefit looked at from the criminal justice. So I think you have the support of everyone in this room for that mission. Right?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, it seems a unanimous support for this idea from people on all sides of what's normally a very contentious group of people. So, you know, Mayor, with that in mind, you know, now is the time. This is the place. You know, you've heard unconditional support from us, and so we want to hand that to you now and ask you to run the ball home and finish it. And if there were no big deal, no big deal.